am not abused.
I am not neglected.
I am not mistreated. Why?
Because I am.
Notice.
Okay, all the young speakers out there and everyone who are online for today's webinar, the organizers of the webinar, a very good evening to all. Let me go into the given topic of the webinar straight away. Children are the most talked about but most neglected lot of the society. Children are the future. By investing in them, societies will have bright future. These statements are what we hear whenever we talk about children. But the required empathy is what lacks while translating these statements into reality. Our constitution provides for so many rights to children and safeguards against their abuse. We have Article 21A providing for right to free and compulsory education to all children of the age of 6 to 14. The expanding horizons of Article 21 took into its fold right to education, since education is what provides dignity and right to life means life with dignity. The Supreme Court said so in Mohini Jain's case, which was later on fortified by several judgments of Supreme Court. But unfortunately, in Uni Krishnan's case, the right to education was restricted to only primary education. Article 45 provides for education to children below 6 years of age. But this article was replaced by Article 21A, which now makes education for children a fundamental right. But I've seen, let me tell you, in my experience, I've seen no writ lying to enforce this right in an individual capacity. Article 21A was brought into the Constitution way back in the year 2002 by its 86th amendment. Almost 19 years have elapsed without seeing much change in children's education and their lives as such. We also see that state has done not much to fulfill the directive in Article 45 to provide education to children up to 6 years of age. Unfortunately, it gets support from the Supreme Court not to do anything in that regard by the ruling in Uni Krishnan's case, though the ratio is qualified by lack of economic resources and social circumstances. Uni Krishnan has said, however, that a citizen has a fundamental right to free education up to 14 years of age. Article 23 prohibits trafficking in human beings and forced labor, the two maladies that stunt the growth, both mental and physical, of children. Only a lip service is being paid to these two social maladies, unfortunately. Let me not be modest in pointing out that many legislators, executives, and even judges have their role in promoting these social evils. I call them not perpetrators of crime, I call them victims too, because they are the classic examples of improper education, be they legislators, be they judges also. I, as a judge, have come across several criminals. When I look at them, the first vision that used to come to my mind is that all of them have born as pure and innocent as any of the children in our homes. The transformation process of an innocent child into a criminal is what should be the study of every mind which wishes for a healthy society. Surely not the death sentence, and more surely not the encounters are the solution to eradicate crime. We cannot expect a child growing amidst insensitive atmosphere to become sensitive and be mindful of the hurt and harm that it is going to cause to others by its insensitive acts. When the society is not ready to talk about the atrocities, we have to term them as atrocities. Lack of sympathy towards a destitute child is nothing but an atrocity, as grave as a cruel rape, if I can say so. The only way to bring down the crimes and to stop a child from becoming a criminal is to take care of the needs of those children, to educate them in a proper way, to provide them with healthy food, shelter, and clothing. The constitutional mandates of no child labor, no trafficking, etc. can only be fulfilled by understanding the reasons for the crime happening in the society. Deterrence has proved to be a failure in our country, we all know. We need to explore other methods by which we can stop these crimes. The solution which occurs to me is what I said already. One visit to juvenile homes would reveal the half-heartedness of the concerned, how a small mistake would unfortunately get to be termed as a crime and would pull the juveniles down to stay in that home till they become majors and later on in jails forever. The conditions prevalent in those homes would never reform a child, I can say that. They would only help harden them. They live deprived of a soothing hand which alone can bring about a change in them. How many times do we come across destitute children on the roads, and how many times does it really astonish us and bother us? Frankly, not many times. A child would without default create rage in us. What lies between our inattention towards the suffering of destitute children and unwanted reaction to the crimes committed by these neglected children into criminals? Reaction at appropriate times is the need of the society. Institutions like McMarvin need to be congratulated for taking up the very contemporary issue as its agenda for their future work. It is really solacing to know that the mission of McMarvin is to clear the epidemic of child abuse from the society. The caption "Prevention Talks" is very encouraging because we have been hearing from our childhood that prevention is always better than cure. We failed to prevent this and we failed to aim at its cure all along, that it has now become an epidemic. We now know better in these times of COVID-19, better than any other times, how difficult it is to cure an epidemic. It needs as committed people like McMarvin to take up this issue, which otherwise would destroy the society silently but very quickly. When we talk about child abuse, only those children who are abused sexually and physically would come to our minds. We only think of preventing these kind of abuses. But the gravest form of abuse, let me tell you, comes from the institutions, as I said, which are meant to reform the children, who are into bad ways because of nothing but lethargy of the society, which includes each one of us. All of us need to introspect, and as a part of our duty, we should do what all can be done to put an end to breeding places of criminals, or at least let us lend a hand to support organizations like McMarvin. I wish McMarvin all the best, and I conclude by thanking them for giving me an opportunity to put forth my thoughts on this very important topic. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Sonu, and it is indeed an immense pleasure to be a part of this elite panel. And thank you for this great opportunity. And to Rajni ma'am, I would like to thank you for sharing such insightful facts indeed. It was very true when you said who children are. Well, who are these children that we talk about? Who are these neglected children that need to be addressed with immediate attention? Indeed, as we all know, they are the future generation of our mankind, in whose hand not only do we hand over the future of our planet, but who are the eyes and knowledge store of today. When we take into factor the presence of children, they're not just growing muscles and bones, but the growth of knowledge, perception, judgments that we adults demonstrate before them. And there are many establishments out there that have come forth to lay down preventive measures, but without the sincere and active cooperation from the family members themselves, children are still in a vulnerable position to be abused physically and mentally. This not only poses a threat on the current condition of the child, but also hampers the psychological being that travels throughout the entire life. How many adults do we meet today who have undergone such abuses and are now demonstrating abusive behaviors, not as offensive mechanisms, but as defensive mechanisms towards themselves? The anger, hatred, vengeance can be quite harmful for the well-being of that particular individual and that of his surroundings as well. And that needs to be noted. His wife, his children further get abused, and that chain gets activated generation to generation. As responsible and educated adults, it is up to us, change makers and policymakers like Rajni ma'am, to further strengthen the barriers. Prevention is definitely better than cure. To all those future leaders to whom our planet and its well-being shall be handed over, they should be nurtured. Children should be nurtured where they should be ready to lead and create an impactful change for the betterment of mankind. Forcing them to encounter pain, horror, and hatred is not the way. Except that children need to be carefree, not be conditioned. Do not go out. Do not play. Do not look at that person. No, they need to be carefree because they need to play, explore, and mingle with the society. That is when they become culturally diverse. That is when they learn inclusivity. We cannot, these leadership programs that we're doing right now to adults, it's going to have like 10% of an impact. But if the same was enforced and enlightened to a growing child, the demonstration of behaviors would have the needed transformation going on right now. Were we brought up in such circumstances? If not so, let it be. The past cannot be undone. But we always can change the future by addressing the present conditions. Children tend to develop into adults with the hope that they shall be set free from the prison of hell, such abused children. Yet, it's very disappointing to see that it's very evident that the trauma deposits profound problems into them. And they eventually tend to become prisoners of the past and travel with no hope, goals, or outcome. And who should take the cause? What should be the causes? We all would like to say, abuse is not only triggered and initiated by external members of the society. It is very disappointing to know that close family members also unleash their debauched needs on innocent and helpless beings. I should shed emphasis that responsibility of a child rests upon parents. It is true that we have all evolved where the current context of life seems to make orthodox parenting highly challenging, but a parent has a duty. From the moment they have decided to blossom a new life onto this earth, the duty begins. Again, why does child abuse occur? We have beautiful parents, we have educated parents, we have beautiful lives, financially challenging, financially independent rather. Yet, parents themselves are the causes. And it's very disappointing as a parent for me to accept. Well, it starts from the very stress perspective, from the perspective of stress itself that parents face. They're unable to give the attention that children require. Children seem to depend on others when they do not acquire or secure the required parent love and attention from their parents. And this is due to the financial problems, the job worries, the medical problems, and family issues that parents, as two responsible adults, go through. And the unrealistic expectations. Now, when a kid is born, he needs to be a doctor, he needs to be an engineer. The unrealistic expectations that are imposed upon that kid, actually hampers the child's development stages and behavior. A child is supposed to be nurtured, again, not conditioned. A child is supposed to explore his needs, explore his or her needs, explore the talents that they carry, because we are all beings with unique capabilities, and that is not only applicable when we are adults. That needs to be nurtured. Today, who we are is how our parents brought us up when we were kids. If our upbringing was quite different, we would have taken a different direction of life. So, lack of parenting skills, where a parent may not know how to take care of their child. They just want to be parents for societal status. And what is that? A parent is not a title that you carry. It is a beautiful responsibility that branches out with so many duties, and it is a new life. It is a source of impact and influence that you bring to the earth. Reproduction was not just to increase population. It was to increase the development of mankind. And are parents actually contributing to the betterment of humanity? I don't think so. Because if that is so, child abuse would have stopped. What is a mother doing? What are the parents doing? People can always say it was beyond our control, it happened without our consciousness. But that is not a responsible answer. Because parenting spans across decades, and we have seen, only during the past 2 decades, the problem of child abuse has drastically increased. There is a hockey stick hike. How is that possible? When education is improving, when we are elevating our life standards, there we have the epidemics elevating in parallel to us. That cannot be the case. Now, here we come to the very solution that I see as a pivotal change: education and awareness. Education is a powerful tool that has been vested upon us. And this is the ammunition that we need to take forth in battling towards such epidemics that have taken quite a dominated status when it comes to child abuse. And education is not for the parents, it is for the children. Parents have to take sex education in a constructive manner. Sex is like it's just like a taboo word. Oh my God, don't talk about sex. No. From a certain point, children should be said, these are your private parts. Learn to say no. Don't say no to your kids, but teach your kids to say no. Teach your kids to voice out. It is only then children will learn to scream when they are under threat. There should be no instead of panicking. There should be voices heard instead of these repressed and oppressed perceptions of children that put them through some unexpected trauma. Well, especially me, I have not gone through, so I cannot talk. But I have seen movies and that makes me cry. Are my kids safe out there when I come to work? But I educate them. This is what it should be. When somebody shows some abnormal amount of affection on your kid, that is when we need to be very, very cautious about. How can child abuse be stopped? Never discipline your child when your anger is out of control. When children tend to imprison, they tend to break out. With the slightest turn of the parent's vision, they tend to break out. Children should be collaboratively brought up. They should be heard. They should be listened to. And we also need to participate in our child's activity and get to know and be our child's friend and get to know our child's friend. Being a strict, disciplined parent will not help because the child is going to get more and more closed. We need to open up the child to understand what her environment, what his or her school environments are. And we should never leave children unattended. This is what become. The nanny is the new mother of a kid. And it is the same nanny that abuses the child. And we need a CCTV camera. The connectivity between us and our kids have become a camera. Is that right parenting? Now that's highly questionable. We need to address that issue. And we also need to be aware of child's behavior. A child never voices out. When you teach them to voice out, we will be able to understand what they're going through the day. And we also need to be alert of any talks that reveal premature sexual understanding. And also, once again, I said, we need to be aware of the child's school, the child's home setting, and be aware of the child's change of behavior. Once again, prevention is better than cure. Now, education needs to be utilized in the most appropriate manner. Now, education needs to focus upon, once again, on the child's awareness towards sex. Sex is not a taboo subject. It is the most crucial point where everybody needs to be aware of all the points that are taking place. So I rest my speech with those thoughts, and thank you once again, Mac Marvin, for this great initiative, and I hope to hear from you also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Sonu. And I would again reiterate the fact that Mac Marvin is doing an amazing job of raising this issue and dealing it with, using the technology. So it's amazing thing that you're doing. And as Rajni ma'am said, we congratulate you, all of us congratulate you for this initiative. And I hope and wish that you actually are able to, deal with this issue in a most, compelling manner. So let's hope for that. And Rajni ma'am, thank you so much for bringing that out, that yes, it is so important for us to understand which are the children that we need to take care of, because we generally talk a lot about the children which are around us, our own child, or people who are close to us. But yes, the most important difference that we need to make in the child which goes to juvenile court, or they stay there and they are the most neglected. Yes, and the treatment that is given to them is like they are they're criminals, severe criminals and all. So that's not a right thing. And then yes, this is an important topic. So since I am also a world peace ambassador, this is something very, very important that you have said, and then I'll definitely look into it, and I'll keep this insight in mind. And Fahmida, I agree a lot with whatever you have said just now. Absolutely, absolutely right when you say that education and parenting is an extremely, extremely important aspect, and that has to be taken care of well, so that the child abuse, the root cause, could be actually eradicated. So yes, wonderful insights by both the speakers here. And before I start what I want to discuss about this topic, let me just tell you two incidences. One is, if you remember before the pandemic, when our kids used to be on using mobile phones beyond a certain limit, what we used to tell them? It's harmful for your eyes, don't do it, right? And now, since we know that the entire education is happening on mobile phone, how many of us actually restricting them to use it for 1 hour only? So what happens with us is we become convenient, as parents, towards whatever we want to tell them. Sometimes we say that, hey, you're too young to know about anything. And the other thing that we say ki, are itne bade ho gaye ho, you have, grown up, now behave, right? So we are very convenient as parents, and somehow that actually conditions our children and confuses our children. So children are the most important factor of the country, as we know that they are going to be our future, but they are the most neglected aspect of the society. I agree with the other speakers on this particular aspect. They are supposed to be free birds, they are supposed to enjoy themselves, but we treat them that way, isn't it? What we do, we tell them, we do not actually discuss so many things about them, we do not come forward, we don't actually do so many activities about children. But otherwise during the pandemic also, I have recently hosted a small party for the kids in my family, and that was a time I had a realization that okay, they are actually neglected. As in, of course, this is not related to child abuse, but the basic mentality that I'm talking about, right? So when I spoken to them and I asked them, okay, how did you feel during this pandemic? Then I actually got to know that okay, they were also worried, they were also facing something which is completely different than what they got used to, and they were not happy staying inside the house and not being able to go out and all those things. Did we actually conduct any session, any webinar asking them what is your strategy to cope up with the pandemic? We didn't do it because we were actually assuming, right? We were assuming that they must be happy because they don't have to go to school and they have to stay at home. So, that's what happens when it comes to child abuse as well. Many a times, we actually do not take it into consideration. We don't feel the need of it. And we don't feel that there is any problem which exists with children. Why? Because they are too young to get into any situation or get into any problem, right? So here is a point that I would like to raise here, that we have to understand them. And as Fadima also correctly said, that we have to be alert about them. We have to keep on, scrutinizing their school environment, their social environment, their friend circle. We have to be worried about people who are trying to be too close to them. So all these things are extremely, extremely important here. I agree with this. And before I get into the next, what I want to say, I would like to just keep open a small presentation of mine, if you allow me to. Thank you. So let me just do it once. How do I do it? Yeah. But you can see my screen, right? I have a presentation to me. Yeah. Okay. Just let me just do it once again. Is the presentation visible now? I can't see the PPT that I have. No worries, it's okay. It doesn't matter. All right. You can see the PPT? Is it visible? Perfect. Okay, great. Yeah. So when we talk about children prevention, abuse prevention or something, I would like to suggest a very small thing here. Instead of calling it child abuse prevention, why can't we call it a safe environment for child or child safety? Let's begin to look at this particular aspect from a very, very positive angle, right? That is how we have to strategize it at every level, at parents level, at organizational level, and also at the government level. Okay, because we heard about this initiative which is taken up by the government, Beti Bachao, but exactly what are we doing about it? How many of us actually beyond our own family are involved in this process? Okay, so that is something which we have to create right from each and every angle of the society, each and every dimension of the society, and we have to actually work on it. Now look at this picture. Can you all see these pictures here on the screen? Is it visible? Perfect. Which one do you think is more appealing to you, the first one or the second one? Of course, the second one, right? Why? Because every one of us would like to see the children smiling, right? They should be able to enjoy themselves. And that is only and only possible if they have a safe childhood, if they are not being a part of any kind of an abuse, be it emotional, psychological abuse, mental abuse, negligence, be it physical abuse, sexual abuse, anything, they should not be able to, they should not be going through all these, and that is the only way we can see the smile on their face. And again, Fadima also have mentioned about it that once a child goes through an abuse, it has a long lasting effect on the entire life cycle that the kid has. Okay, and as Rajni ma'am has also mentioned, we do see, and when I was browsing about certain researches which have been done on this field, I have come across a study which tells us that more than 50% criminals are from the background of child abuse. Since they have been abused as children, they get into criminal zone when they grow up. Okay, and then look at this again. If at all a child goes through a certain abusive cycle, he actually becomes defensive, and then yes, he keeps on going through that from his partner also. So it remains as a life cycle, it continues as a life cycle. And why it happens? Because the society that we are staying in, what it asks us to keep quiet, not to talk about bad touches. Okay, we are not supposed to, again, very simple example, when our children are very young and they ask us, where did I come from? What do we tell them? God has kept you in my house, or I have just borrowed you from the hospital. I'm not saying that that is the very small age you should start talking to them about sex, but of course, as again the other speakers have said, there is a correct age for you to come out of that conditioning. Okay, you should not be conditioning. The society should not be keeping quiet about all these issues. We talk about women empowerment, we talk about everything, but why can't we talk about child abuse? Why do we want us, again, the family members are also keeping quiet about it, right? The children are supposed to keep quiet about it. They're not supposed to talk about it. We are conditioning them right from their beginning, right from their childhood, like that. Shh, don't talk about it. Don't say anything. Don't tell anybody that you have been through this, right? So that conditioning happens from the childhood, and then naturally the children grow in a mindset. They feel that, okay, all this what is happening around me, be it bad education that I'm getting, or maybe a bad treatment that I'm getting from my school, or if at all a friend is misbehaving with me, or somebody right from my family is treating me in an inappropriate manner, or even if my parents are neglecting me, all this is very natural, and this is the way life is. So this conditioning which is there, and the social taboo that we are staying in, is actually the root cause of the reason of child abuse, growing child abuse. Like now, when we were actually going through this lockdown phase, I'm sure every one of you would have read about, maximum child abuse were happening, maximum sexual assault for children were happening during that period. So when the lockdown was there, and when the other people, the outsiders, were not supposed to come into your house, how it was happening? It was happening because the family members were doing it, right? So how many times we are actually, coming out of and raising voice against all these things? We are keeping quiet, and the same thing is expected from our children as well, right? So that is how we actually, say that we should not be talking about it. And when again I was studying for this subject, I have come across a very beautiful video which talks about how can we create awareness in the world that we are staying right now, how we can use the social media as a platform, a very impactful platform, to create awareness about this child abuse, and how do we prevent child abuse, and rather how we can create a safe environment for children. So if you allow me, let me just play this video. Can I? Yeah, thank you. Is it visible? Is it visible?
Yes.
Can you hear it clearly? Sure. Mhm. Okay. The volume is full actually. Right. It's still not audible? Yeah, the captions are already there, yes. Yeah, I'm so sorry for the audio thing because I have tried to, see it from the YouTube. I would have downloaded it, but I believe that the message was very crystal clear that, each one, we should not be only responsible for our own kid, because that is any which ways is our responsibility as parents. And as we have already discussed that, the parenting is an extremely, extremely important aspect. And as I said, we should not be conditioning the kids right from their beginning to keep quiet and not to talk about sex, or not to talk about any bad touch, or not to talk about something which is happening around them. Okay, we should create that kind of comfortable environment inside the house. But not only that, if we as a responsible citizen come across any kind of crime like that, or if we feel that something is happening wrong around us, we should create an awareness about it. And what would be the better use of social media than this? Because we all have different social media accounts, and that can be a very effective channel that we can use to create awareness about these issues. So that is how we can, of course, create an create an awareness. And that is one of the aspects, because whatever goes viral is actually uh, people pay attention to that, isn't it? So that is how we can actually use social media for child abuse prevention initiative, or we can create a safe environment for children. When we just the way we have kept come across Me Too kind of an initiative, right? Similar way, we should actually raise voice against this child abuse also. Whoever child it is, we should come forward and we should say that this is not something right which is happening to those children, isn't it? So that could be one of the ways. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to express my views, and I hope that I have been able to create that kind of an impact which I wanted to. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and I'm so excited to hear out the other speakers who are actually line up. So thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And I'm really very humble, and I have actually learned a lot from Ms. Shraddha and Fahmida and Rijani ma'am, and they have really shared very meaningful insight with us. So, as we all know, in legal perspective in India, India does have a very wide range of laws to protect children, and child protection is increasingly accepted as a core component of social development. But the challenge is actually in its proper implementation and its reach. And more than that, if we think about it, as Rajani ma'am said, that the loophole is that we have the cure for it, but not the methods of protection and prevention. Like majority of the laws that we read today are about how to are directed towards the punishment of the offenders after they have committed the crime. But where is prevention? I think this is where India really needs to work upon. And as I've previously volunteered with Child Rights and Youth, CRY Foundation, I read about various cases of sexual abuse and violation of their basic human rights. And if that wasn't enough, it got actually very badly affected during the pandemic and lockdown. In an article that I was reading the other day in the Indian Logical, stated that just in the first 11 days of the lockdown itself, the child line, there was a helpline called Childline for children in distress, which is backed by Ministry of Women and Child Development, received 3.07 lakh calls, which is 92,105 calls about regarding the abuse and violence of children. Childline also saw a 50% increase in the number of calls during this period. There is very little research done in this area, and only a very few books have been written about it, and keeping the subject even further from the consciousness of the country. Fortunately, the issue of child sexual abuse is slowly becoming a more recognized issue and is now discussed more oftenly and more openly, just like this initiative by McMarvin. What I feel is that there should be a proper strategy and approach to prevent child abuse, and where the government, the society, the private persons, and even the child itself need to work together. And this should be started by finding the root cause of the problem, and then creating a strong foundation. Like the government take initiative to provide economic support to the family, strengthening the household financial security, which can reduce child abuse and neglect done by improving parents' ability to satisfy their children's basic need, which will provide appropriate childcare and reduce parental stress and depression, both risk factors for child abuse and neglect. Family friendly work policies can change the context for families as it is done in USA, I guess, by improving the balance between work and family while ensuring economic security. Proper wages and paid leave should be provided to the parents who have children so that they could provide appropriate time for taking care of their children and also provide their basic needs. If we take think about the parental's mental health, then we can also change their parenting behaviors. Changing social norms that accept or allowed indifference to violence is very important to the prevention of child abuse and neglect. Public engagement and education campaigns can be done using social marketing techniques, which would be used to change behavior relating child abuse. For example, the Breaking Cycle campaign, which was done in USA, which promoted the benefits of not abusing children and helping parents understand the cycle of abuse, that is, children learn from their parents, was very much effective in changing the parents' emotional abuse of their children and children's exposure to parental conflict. A post survey showed up that up to 44% of parents had changed their behaviors after the learning from the campaign, and 16% has tried to stop yelling at, swearing at, or putting their children down and fighting or arguing in front of their children, which actually is a very important factor in child's growth and its development. A pre and post comparison of another campaign focused on positive parenting showed a 19% decrease in stigma associated with parents needing help in parenting. Other than physical abuse, we have seen online abusing, bullying, child pornography, etc. are also taking place. As technology is helping the predators to commit the crime easily, one question that constantly arises is that can it also help to prevent it too? Can technology also help in preventing the crime? It can also be the solution we are striving for. New forms of technology such as AI, artificial intelligence, can pave the way to better prevention, detection, and prosecution of these crimes. While technology has helped enable offenders, it can also be a part of the answer for that. It can empower children by giving them the information they need to protect themselves. Artificial intelligence, for example, can alert a child if the person they are chatting to online is unlikely to who they claim to be. It can analyze the use of language to spot traits that indicate grooming for or identify when someone is using anonymous names and asking for money or sexual material like nudes and all. So such a system could be very cost effective and can have a very high impact in the society to help keep kids safe online, as nowadays more than physical activities, kids are actually on their mobile phones, and they are more acclimated to get into some kind of online abuse than physical abuse. Like I have read some of the methods and some of the AI technologies used in other countries, like childsafe.ai in USA has developed the world's first AI platform of observing millions of conversations and intercepting them for child abuse content using chatbots, particularly when a transaction between a buyer of sex from minor and a seller is about to occur. However, tech firms like childsafe.ai actually face challenging environment. Okay, I guess my time is over, as we've seen. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. I thought, okay, thank you. So, as I was talking about the AI solutions for that, as I've read that Mac Marvin is actually working towards some AI solutions for this problem. Another AI powered tool I read about is Safer, that detects child abuse images with around 99% accuracy. Safer allows tech platforms to identify, remove, and take a critical step forward in the plan to eliminate child sexual abuse material shared online. Safer has already enabled the takedown of nearly 100,000 known child sexual abuse material files while in its beta phase. Law enforcement agencies need to share intelligence on perpetrators and criminal activities trends, and civil society actors must offer their deep understanding of the issue faced by victims. They should establish new forms of collaboration across sectors and borders to beat the massive global communities of preparators online. There are also many regulatory and political challenges to this, but if we work together, we can surely overcome this. Until we change the incentive schemes and legislation regulating technology, any solution to combat the online sexual abuse of children will be limited in scope. And stakeholders need to redefine legal frameworks and cooperation agreement to enable the secure use and sharing of data backed up by supportive regulation and advanced AI software. They can work together to safeguard vulnerable children. In India, the tech firms need to bring their AI, allocating more resources to develop and expand AI solutions. Public authorities and private sectors need to collaborate closely, not only on tools that improve detection, but also those disrupt online abuse the moment it occurs. I think that technical sector, the legal sector, the government, the general society, and children in itself, in educating the people, should collaborate and work together to bring out the best possible solution to this. And thank you once again for having me here. It was really a very learning experience for me.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And it is really mind-blowing and eye-opening to hear all these different perspectives to this topic of, and I love it that it's prevention better than cure context to this conversation. And thank you so much to McMarvin and the founder, Mr. Jakir, for arranging for this amazing conversation that we are having right now. And I want to give a more of a personal approach to this. And I have a short 3 slides for us to just look through. I'm hoping that the slide will work. Let me see. Okay, before I just go into that, let's just quickly talk about this conversation that I'm talking to you about. So there has been the whole context of child abuse. Studies have shown that 1/3 of the abused child has been, the parent of the whoever this abuser has been an abused child themselves. Have you all come across that conversation? This is where we are heading with this topic that I want to approach it from. And I am hoping that now I can share the screen. Let me see. Okay, I'm just going to go in there. Okay, got it. Can you see this?
Yes, it's visible.
Right. So we are talking about our children. And as a parent, and how many of you have been a child before? All of us. So this is where we are looking at that our children, and it was us then, and now it's our children, and then it's going to be our future. So we need to understand, for me, it is about the collective ecosystem of a child. And if you notice, as children, there was only 3 parts to our life. One was our small world that made up of our parents, our family members that live with us. And then there is the school that has the teacher, role model that we look up to, and all the teachers. And then there is the peers. And this is the conversation we have always been at, and we have been evolving on. So for me, this is a very important understanding, to know that our children revolve around this. And so if this was us so many years ago, I want to narrow down this whole conversation to collective responsibility. And I want to get ourselves to tune in to what we call elevating the collective awareness for humanity. And these are the 4 areas that I want to, guide us to. And I'm going to, stop sharing and discuss a little bit on this. Elevating the collective awareness for humanity. That means knowing that every single person who has abused to some level is a deprived human being, is a hurt human being, and has been going through some part of their life in a way that they could not relate to the world. And this has resulted in them doing what they did. And I want to give you my personal experience in this journey, and I will do that in a short while. knowing that everybody have gone through this, and whoever has been abused or has been abusing is in this context. And I want to bring forth an idea called the ancestral healing to break the pattern. And when I say this is scientifically proven, right? All of us know. You can find out your parents, your great-grandparents. In fact, there are ancestral DNA tests that it will show you exactly how many percentage of you come from which part of the world. So this is a very interesting, one of my mentor from US, and she will be in my show next week. And she told me that 51% of her or 60% of her was Chinese, even though she's born in Chile. This is because they have DNA tests to trace back our roots. So there is such thing as ancestral DNA in us. When as adults, now when we talk about collective responsibility, I'm zooming into the adults right now. Not just about them, how they should take care of the child to overcome the abuse, because everybody have already discussed on that. I'm looking at more of the focus on the adult who has been that abusive person and what can happen to break that pattern from continuing in any shape, size, or form. And this requires a new level of consciousness, an evolved space of consciousness, and a space that everyone can call it, an individual responsibility, and, to tap on peace within that can really support us to get to that journey. So I'm just going to stop sharing, and because I don't know whether if I change the screen, people will get to see it otherwise. So I just want to bring home the idea that it is so crucial for us to look at, as an individual, where we are heading with the world as a whole. So for me, my experience has been, I go through a lot of, and many of you know, my journey has been from a homemaker to be a global entrepreneur. And for me to do that, it took me a lot of personal work, the evolving work, to relook at my DNA, what worked and what didn't work. And in that journey, I discovered so many childhood experiences that has resulted in me being less than who I thought I am, the ultimate spiritual being having a human experience. So this is where it got me to look at how my mom, in her ignorant space, because she was a person who migrated from India, she was living like a queen in India, being the eldest daughter, taken care by all the family members and everything. She came to Singapore, she gave birth to me and my sister, and my brother was there. So it was a time for her that she didn't know how to cope with herself. Now, come on, I want to be very clear. I'm not giving excuse for another human being. I'm just being empathetic to realize this is not about wronging anybody, to realize that there is such a situation that has happened. And due to her incapacity, there was no one to educate her, to tell her that this is how she needs to do things, that she ended up, to some extent, abusing and having physical abuse and emotional abuse in me. And that I didn't realize it because I come from, I love my childhood. Everything I can think of is beauty and I have nothing to complain about. Unconsciously, this was rooted in me. Until I went through this learning journey, I realized that this has impacted me at a deep level. And knowing that, physically, like everybody say, yeah, nobody should complain that, you should know you should not hit your child, or you should know you should not abuse. Now, everybody, you are stupid. You don't know how to do this. Now, we know that those, our parents and our great-grandparents, that was their mantra to correct them. That was the mantra. The cane was the mantra to make sure, it's like, in Tamil, we say, Sama Beda Dandam. That means first you say like softly, and then you say, I think this is the Sanskrit, no? You say it softly, and then you say a bit harsh, and then you go for the real one. So this has been the journey of all our ancestors and the way that they have led their life. So it is our level of consciousness. Now we know that everyone is a soul at some space. And I want to tell you this. I told you about my healing that I realized my parents. I want to tell you one more part of it. And I have 3 beautiful kids. And they are beautiful, awesome boys and girls, big grown-ups right now in their 20s. Guess what? To some level, I had some level of abuse on them. And I dare to say this. When I say abuse, it's like, it may not sound like too big, right? But for me, that's an abuse, like hitting the child or telling to shut up or, something like that. To me, that has been. So now my question is, as parents, are we going to sit down and lament and worry that, oh my God, I'm such a failure in life, I've abused my child? Or is it about us stepping up the game, really breaking the pattern? That's where the ancestral healing is so crucial in everybody's life. And that's the proposition I want to make. Rather than, things happen, and I'm going to take a very Ethiopian approach to talk to you. And if we can, at every single community of India, just like across the world, because that's what we stand for, at every single community, adopt a collective responsibility in increasing the consciousness of the adults to ensure that they experience love, peace, and joy, to have themselves recognize who they are so that they can exude the same to everybody else. So that's the stand I want to make. And it is, it may sound like Ethiopian, but we can start this movement in every single town, every single city. And in our small way, we are doing it with business leaders, that we go to them, and we have an amazing community of business leaders and trainers and coaches. We work with them to experience that so they can have that ripple effect. And I want to just leave you with this information, and that's the last slide. And I think I just want to share that with you, which is all about being the change that is, let me see. This is the final one that I want you to know. It is about being the change. And we know this is the beautiful mantra that Mahatma Gandhi has left us with, right? So this is about being the change, and who can we be for our world, for our family first, right? It is the nuclear system that we need to break the chain for, and so that it doesn't create a ripple effect so we stop it there, and so we recreate something more positive, more impactful, and that will innately, create much more joy, peace, and love in the world. So that's my perspective to this. I'm not a study person in presenting papers, but I thought a real life experience will support the progress in this program. And thank you once again for Marvin. I look forward to learning more about your AI work and the mission you're on. And we are in this with you. Thank you so much.